Welcome to Digital Dominators, the podcast that helps small business owners grow their confidence, sharpen their digital skills, and actually enjoy showing up online. I'm Sooz Young, your host, tech coach, and digital cheerleader, and every week I chat with brilliant experts to bring you practical tips, smart strategies, and the tools and tech to make business easier. From social media marketing to websites, content to confidence, AI to automation, we're breaking it down into simple steps you can actually use. If you're ready to make things simpler and more successful in your digital world, you're in the right place. Let's get stuck in. Welcome back to Digital Dominators, the podcast where we explore the strategies that help you grow your business, amplify your impact, and get visible in all the right ways. Today's episode is a special one. If you've ever dreamed of writing a book or even just thought one day, this conversation will make that day feel a lot closer. Because writing a book isn't just about publishing words on a page, it's about sharing your message, building credibility, and opening doors to new opportunities. And today's guest is the very best person to show us how to do it faster, easier, and smarter. Lucy McCarraher is an author, publisher, speaker, and the UK's most experienced business book mentor. She's the founder of Bookmagic AI, co-founder of Rethink Press, and the creator of Mastermind, and she's helped thousands of entrepreneurs, leaders, and experts turn their ideas into powerful, profitable books. Lucy has worked alongside some of the biggest names in business, including Daniel Priestley and the team at Rethink Media, helping people articulate their expertise and build a brand that lasts. Her latest innovation, Bookmagic AI, blends human creativity with artificial intelligence to make writing your business book faster and more accessible than ever without losing your unique voice. In this episode, we're talking about how to write the right book for your business, how AI is transforming the publishing process, and what it really takes to turn your ideas into influence. Let's get into it. Hi, Lucy.
Hi, Sooz. Thank you for having me here.
I am so excited for this conversation because I am a Bookmagic user, and I am so excited to talk and share about how fantastic this tool is for our audience. But before we get into that, what I always like the guests to do is to tell us, how did you get to this point? How did you get from all of your experience to creating this product and working with the businesses that you do today, Lucy?
Well, I've had a sort of wild and wacky career. I'm not sure you can even call it a career, really. I've sort of cycled through different things like magazine publishing, TV presenting, TV writing and producing, being a work-life balance expert. Then I wrote some fiction, and then I got into publishing business books. So it's been, the thread, I think, has always been for me writing. I've had to do that in all of those very different things, which is great. But what happened was I wrote a self-help book called The Real Secret. It was published by a small independent publisher, which was run by a guy called Joe Gregory. And Joe was lovely. I didn't even realize to begin with that he actually lives quite near me in Norfolk, and we met at a networking evening.
Wow.
I discovered at that networking evening that his business partner had recently left. And I just thought, wow, this is really interesting. There could be a role for me here. I've been in publishing, in magazine publishing before. I'm really interested in this sort of book. So I thought about it a bit, and I sent him a kind of CV, but also these are the kinds of things I'm good at and I can do. Do you think there's any way that I could, work with you? As I know that you've got a kind of hole in your business at the moment. And he didn't get back to me for about 2 weeks. And I thought, no, I've made a complete fool of myself. How embarrassing. This is awful. I wish I hadn't done it. And then suddenly he came back saying, sorry, I've been thinking about this, and I think that's a great idea. And how would you like to be my commissioning editor at Bookshaker? So I joined him at his publishing company, Bookshaker, which, as I said, just published my book. And then I kind of got into the business and saw the kind of books he was publishing. And they were all books by entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, people who wanted to have books that we now talk about as, to the book to build your business. And Joe was at that point operating on a traditional publishing business model, which is the publisher invests in the book, in the production of the book, and then makes money from book sales. And the author makes a little bit from book sales, but that's how the publisher gets the return on their investment. And it struck me that most of his authors were not into selling huge amounts of books. They actually wanted to give away books. And that was not a particularly strong publishing model. So I suggested that we try something different and actually charge authors for the publishing process so that they could take control of their books. They could then do what they wanted. Nobody would be under pressure to sell copies of books, which after all makes a very small amount of money. I mean, you sell a book for, the cover price, let's say, might be £10, but what the publisher and the author get out of it is nothing like that. So I thought, well, if we tried this model, a different model, we could see if, there was actually a market for it. So we tried it. We called it Rethink Press as a sort of, this is a new way of looking at things. And it actually, within a year or so, we just published a very few books the first year. And then it suddenly took off. And the reason for that partly was that we met Daniel Priestley. He, as you probably know, runs the Key Person of Influence. Well, that's his, his whole idea is the Key Person of Influence Accelerator program for entrepreneurs. And one of the tenets of KPI, as it's known, is you must write your book. To become a key person of influence, you must write a book. So one of the modules of KPI is publishing the book. And at that time, he had a kind of gap in his coaching, in his mentoring team for someone to do the book writing. So I was able to step into that. And then, of course, we had lots of entrepreneurs. I was mentoring, this was in the days before COVID, of course, long before, where, I would go into a room of 60 entrepreneurs who wanted to write a book, but were brilliant at what they did, but no idea how to, turn that knowledge into a book. And I would coach them through the process of positioning, planning, and then later kind of writing their books. So that was incredibly good experience. It was lovely to do. It was a fantastic place to be. But it also meant that all these entrepreneurs thought, oh yes, Rethink Press, that's where we need to publish our book, of course.
Yeah.
So together, that kind of combination of Key Person of Influence, Daniel, Joe, me, became, a thing. And Rethink just kind of grew exponentially. So that was the publishing bit. But also, of course, that's where the mentoring came from as well. And we built up also a team of coaches, because the other thing about our particular kind of authors were, as I say, they were brilliant at what they did, but not necessarily professional writers. Most of them were not, sort of writing was not their thing necessarily. They didn't know how to put a book together to present what they did to the public, or rather to their market, because it's not the public in general we're talking about, it's their particular market. So we also started, we also sort of grew this team of coaches who would coach, whereas I would do the mentoring of groups. The coaches would do individual book writing coaching, helping with the planning, and ghostwriting as well, which is a very kind of valid way of getting your book out as well for an entrepreneur. So that was what we were doing in real life with real people for years and years. And we built a format, a model for all those aspects of it that was, the more I worked with people, large groups of people, and of course, individuals, the more I could see there were typical places where people would get stuck, reasons where they found that they got overwhelmed by the process often. And so, I sort of developed these models for people to go through, and, they're called the writing process is called WRITER. It's an acronym, write, review, improve, test, edit, repeat. So it was all just sort of, kind of refining and getting clearer, and, I could take people through it very easily. And then AI came. along. And somebody in the KPI group, tech developer called Jonathan Farrer, put out a post in the Facebook group saying, I'm a bit stuck with my book. I think I'm going to develop an app. Anybody interested? So I thought, yeah, yes, you can't do that. You can't do that without me. So I messaged him and said, look, you can develop apps. I can take people through book writing. We need to get together on this. So that was how Bookmagic started.
I absolutely love that journey. And I think it boils down to you really just putting yourself out there and taking that confidence step to step into going, actually, there's an opportunity there. I'm going to take action on that opportunity. And that goes from your first conversation to get into the publishing space to then going into the next area with Daniel Priestley and then mentoring. So it's about that real courage, I would say, to take that step into putting yourself out there to take action.
Well, it's lovely that you call it courage. I mean, I sort of think of it sometimes as just rather a kind of a random attitude to life. I mean, I've never been someone who said, these are my goals, these are my plans, I'm going to do this, I'll achieve this by this age or something. I've always sort of just taken the next thing that's come along that sort of seems interesting. And, quite often it's sort of, can you do this? Yes, of course I can. No, I can't really, but I'll learn quickly, kind of thing. So yeah, it's that's that. I suppose that is my kind of modus operandi, and it's worked well for me.
Yeah,
so far.
It definitely has. And what I like as well is that from you shared there is that the amount of people that you've worked with and through that mentoring process has allowed you to really refine that offering that you could then turn into that app solution. And so talk us about what that process is, because I know many business owners that struggle with the concept of turning their thoughts into the solution that people can read and follow. And I come to it from a learning perspective, and how do we teach people that kind of learning objectives? And then it's difficult for people to go, what's in here, to get it articulated into a book format. So you've created this structure, and it's the writer format. Is that right? This framework that people can follow.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, essentially there are three parts to it. So position, plan, and write. And I think one of the mistakes people make is that they don't realize that there are different aspects to writing a book, that things that need to be taken step by step in the right order. And they just sort of see it as this big amorphous task filled with lots of weird and wonderful bits and pieces, like researching and editing and proofreading and planning a bit. And, they don't sort of see it as a really important sort of step-by-step broken down process. So that's one of the things. So the first thing that entrepreneurs, business owners, coaches and consultants need to understand is the positioning of their book. It is not about finding some huge, unique, original idea that's going to go out and be a bestseller. I mean, if that happens, fantastic. That's an absolute bonus. And, some people do. But mostly the way your book builds your business is to write a book specifically for your market. So, your ideal prospects are your ideal readers. That is who you're talking to. And it may be, you could have a market of 10 people in the world. But if you can write a book that speaks to them, tells them what you do, explains your expertise, your process, gives them case studies about how you work with real clients, then we call your book your undercover sales agent, because it's not like any other marketing asset. It's not a brochure. It's not a pitch. It's not a business card. It's very subtle. It gives all the information people need, to know how you work and what you do and how fantastic you are without being salesy. So it's really important to understand that first. And the point about that is that you're not coming up, as I say, with this extraordinary new idea that you need to do loads of research for and kind of discover what it is. It is what you know. It is what you do. It's what you've been doing for the last few years. It is, like you say, I have a process. You have a process, and that is what your business consists of. And that's what your book consists of. That's what you're taking people through on the book journey as a reader. You're taking them through what you would do with them as a client, but also you're giving them loads of valuable information along the way. So the positioning bit, which is, the first part of Bookmagic, is to say, who is your ideal client? What do they do? What is their, what are their interests? What are their needs? Why are they talking to you now? What are they looking for? What is their question, their problem that they need to solve when they're coming to you to either buy your services or, in this case, to read your book? And it's understanding that. And in fact, what Bookmagic is so great about, the AI is so brilliant. The more you tell it, the more it will help you refine how you position that book to that market. And the important thing is to understand that when you're writing your book, you need an avatar. You need created your ideal client avatar in your head, and you just talk to them. You talk to one person. And that's the sort of positioning bit as well. I think lots of people think when you're writing your book, and especially if you have this idea that you're talking to, the whole world, and it's got to influence everybody. No, you're talking to one person at a time, always. Every reader is having a singular experience listening to your voice. I mean, either literally through an audio book or, reading your book. They are just listening to you, talking to them as a single person. And that's how you need to position your book, that one ideal prospect, and you talk to them. And that's how Bookmagic starts, by helping you position your book, and you as the author and your ideal client, your ideal reader. So that's the first step. And then when you've done that, the next mistake people tend to make is not to plan before writing. I think, we often have this idea of, kind of creative writer. And if you're writing a book, you must be creative and you get in the flow. And yes, you may have some ideas for chapters, but, once you start writing, it will all come good, and, it will just kind of come out of your head neatly onto the page. Well, unfortunately, that's where it tends to go wrong first, because if you don't, if you haven't planned in advance, you can write a couple of chapters and that sort of works quite nicely. And then you start to think, oh, hang on, what comes next? What's the next bit? Should I put that bit in or that bit in? And, where am I going with that? And where should I put this? So our planning system, which is the thing I sort of developed with the KPIs, with the entrepreneurs in the big masterclasses, where I used to use index cards. So a pack of white index cards and a pack of the 4-colored index cards. And I would start by saying to them, it's okay. You don't need to know what your book's going to look like. You don't need to create a structure on your own. The first step is just to find 30 things, 30 subjects, topics that you need to tell your reader. It doesn't matter what order they come in, but you could write 500 to 1,000 words on each of them. So just write on white index cards the name of a topic. It's sort of like a blog post, and that that you will want to put in your book, and just do that intuitively, quickly, because this stuff. This is what you tell your clients all the time. So just get that out of your head, and then when you've written down the names of 30 topics that you could write about 1,000 words on, you've actually got the entire content of your book there. 30,000 words is your book. All you have to do now is fill in the blank. But then we kind of use the other coloured cards to structure the book. So blue cards are about stories. Really important to have stories running through your book. And the two kinds of stories that will really engage an ideal prospect are, one, stories about you and your learning journey. And not necessarily the places where you've done something fantastic and brilliant, but the places where you failed and learnt something, so that they go, that writer, that author, they know what I'm going through now. They've experienced what I've experienced, and they understand. And the other kind of story that's really important is case studies. Now, these are not testimonials. These are not your clients going, oh, wow, I worked with, whoever, and they're wonderful. It's not that at all. It's you picking out a client, and whether you're B2B or B2C, a person, a business, who had a problem. You made an intervention. You tell the reader about that and what the outcome was. And you paint a little picture, a little verbal picture of how you actually work in real life. You tell a little story, so they're imagining it in their head. And it's not a great long one. It's not a case study where you go into every detail of what you've done with this client. It's just a little story. And that will make your ideal prospect go, oh, that's me. Yes, I need this too. That's what they do. That's what I need. So when you pick your case studies, pick as wide a range as possible, because obviously you'll have different kinds of prospects reading the book. So you want each of them, no matter where they're coming from, what kind of problem they have, you want them to go 2 or 3 times during reading your book. Say, oh yeah, that's it. That's me. I know I need to work with this person because this is what they've done for this one. So then it's a question of sort of, you've got your topics, your main content, then you've got your stories that you drop in as illustrations. And then the third color is green, and that's about data. And that's about referencing other people's work, talking, perhaps using some quotes, any research you've done yourself, like that you could present as a graph or a chart or some figures, or, just again, it's not so much illustrations in the way that stories are as supporting what you're saying, making sure that people can see that you're backed up by, outside external information, data, and you drop that in the plan as well.
As a creator, I used to spend hours re-recording voiceovers to get the perfect tone. But finding reliable voice talent, booking studio time, and editing takes forever, and it can break the bank. That's why I recommend 11 Labs. It generates ultra-realistic AI voices and even clones your own, all in seconds. With natural-sounding speech, multilingual support, and seamless text-to-speech conversion, 11 Labs powers podcasts, audiobooks, training modules, and more. No mic required. Ready to level up your audio? Try it free today at allmylink.me/TC11labs and bring your scripts to life with 11 Labs.
And at this point, you still haven't got a journey, you still haven't got a structure. So at this point now, you bring in the pink cards, which are your chapter headings, and you divide up those white, blue, and green cards into chapters. And that's what we used to do on big tables in these big masterclasses I used to give. Now you can do it on Bookmagic, and it's obviously a lot easier and quicker to do it on the screen. So you can, move your well, they're not cards, although we do have a card view, because it's actually different people's brains work in different ways, and I'm a very listy kind of person, so I like to have a contents page that looks like a list. But other people really like to see that visual kind of representation of the contents of their book. So we have a card version as well that people can, move the cards around and see what it looks like. And then you can see, have I got enough blue cards in this chapter? Should I put another one in this one? Is one chapter too much longer than the other? So it's, we really have worked hard at making Bookmagic as inclusive as possible for all different kinds of brains, different kinds of thinkers, different ways that people, to make it as easy as possible for people to get their books planned and written. So that's the next stage. That's the planning, and that's completely separate to the writing. So you plan really in that much detail. And once you've got a really detailed content page, then you cannot get writer's block, because you always know, you've got such a lot of detail there that you just, you take one topic or one case study, you write that, you kind of, that bit's finished, you can tick it off, and then you move on to the next. And you don't even actually, when you plan in that much detail, you don't even have to write in chronological order. You can pick out a bit that you feel inspired to write, fill that in, and then, go backwards and forwards if you want to. So that's the planning bit, which I think a lot of people leave out. It's not, it's not sort of obvious that that's what has to happen next. And only then, when you've done the positioning and the planning, then you move on to the writing. And again, the writing is not just a kind of big kind of block of work. It's, again, you need to do a first draft first, and that is the hardest part. But the clue, the tip to writing a first draft is that it is just a first draft. Nobody else has to see it. It doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, it's better if it's not. If you get stuck in your first draft trying to make it perfect, then you'll get stuck. And you might never finish your book because you're always trying to get that first draft right. But it's really important just to get it out of your head and onto the page. And that's how, in Bookmagic, our AI coaches will help you do that. And then you go back and you do your self-editing, and then you test it with beta readers. And again, that's a very specific way of working with them and making sure that you choose the right people who will be good beta readers, and you get their feedback, and you make sure that they don't think that they're there to correct your spelling or things like that. They're actually giving feedback from their area of expertise, and then you get their feedback, you sift through it, you decide what is right for you, because some feedback you won't agree with, other feedback will be absolute gold dust. And what Bookmagic allows you to do with beta readers is get people to join your account as collaborators, so they can see what you've written, they can leave you notes. They cannot fiddle around with your actual writing, but you can get feedback from them all in the same place. So you're not sending out, a Word document to them, a printed document to someone else. They can all come into your account at Bookmagic, read your latest draft and give their feedback. And then, your final job in the writing process is to collate that feedback, decide what works, and go through it a final time, do your final best edit. And then you will undoubtedly have a great manuscript ready for publishing and editing. So those are the, sorry, I've really gone into detail here, but those are the
It's
steps
amazing.
to take you through.
I mean, it's so clearly articulated because it is so clearly laid out on the tool. And as someone that's used the tool, I can only testament to that, because the fact that you addressed so many ways that people can interact in that tool, because it is an interactive tool. Like for me, the card format was just great.
Oh,
I could
good,
drag and
good.
drop, and that format that you explained there is what I followed, because the detailed instructions on the tool are so clear as well. So everything has been thought out. It's been really well thought out, really well designed, and really well put together. And I can only say that that's from your experience and collaborating really well with the right developer to be able to create this tool, because you knew your audience really well, and you knew what the problem was, and you could come up with that solution to be able to provide it for them.
I mean, I kind of feel that in a way this sort of thing is the best use of AI, because it's not asking AI. And what I really have to say is that it's not there for AI to write your book. The writing, I mean, AI can go everywhere online. It can find all sorts of stuff, but the one place it cannot get to is inside your head. So it's absolutely essential that you write. The actual writing is yours, and your voice. And it doesn't matter if you're a good writer or a bad writer, or your voice and your knowledge and your expertise is key. So I need to say that. But all the kind of surrounding stuff, the structuring, the planning, the positioning, and also helping you get through the writing. So you can plan your own schedule, and it will give you nudges. It will tell you when you plan to write, and all that sort of thing. So I really kind of feel that the human experience, combined with somebody who has tech, brilliant kind of tech skills. And I know nothing about the tech. I have no clue how Jonathan has put it together inside the app. That's, completely beyond me. But I know that if I can explain to him what's needed, that's what he can do. And I think that combination of real life experience, real human kind of knowledge, and working with real people, then translated into tech, and taking, using all the incredibly powerful bits that AI can offer, but not kind of turning everything over to AI and saying, okay, you do it. I don't have to do it. It's still hard work writing a book, as you may have noticed.
Yeah.
But
it is. That's why it's not published yet. So it's still hard work writing a book. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. But it does. I mean, I wrote the book that is called Bookmagic. I wrote it through using the tool. And I'll be completely honest, I thought this is my 14th book. I know how to do this. I don't really think I'm going to need to use, an AI tool, but, it is my tool and I'd better kind of, give it a try and show people that I am using it. I was really genuinely amazed that it made it so much quicker and easier. It really, really did. I was actually thrilled that, it worked for me. I mean, I suppose in a way we kind of our belief that our ideal client is probably a first time writer or an inexperienced writer, and that's how it's that's who it's kind of aimed at. But actually, I'm not the only experienced writer who's used it. Other people have used it too and said, God, I mean, there's people writing academic books in Bookmagic and saying, wow, this really makes my writing process so much easier and quicker. It just, creates a platform, if you like, where I can plan and I can get things written, and it just is, a lot quicker and easier. So yeah, I was also very pleased to find that it really did work for me as well as everybody else.
No, and it is testament to how it's created. The customer avatar journey at the start of the process is, if every business owner had that process just for setting up their own business, because we
Yeah,
know that running a business is about the customer, and that's really why we've set up the business, is to help, right? To help find that problem or solution for that.
absolutely.
That's what
Yeah.
most of the time why businesses are set up. So we really forget about our customer avatar when it comes to the other parts of our business, like our web presence or sometimes our social media content that goes out, and either even protecting our customers in those spaces as well. So what your tool does is put that as the main focus at the start of the writing and continue to bring that journey throughout. And what I loved is that even within the tool, I could upload the image of that avatar that I created
Yes,
right
yes.
from the start of it. So I'm continually, like, it's the same way as people say, put a picture on your desk or on the wall or of your avatar. You can do that within the tool. So you've thought about every single aspect to make that user experience through the user interface, the user experience, the user journey of that person writing that book throughout the process. So you've explained the whole journey so well. You've went through how you create the book and you can write the book using the tool. But there are some other features of this tool that we've not talked about as well. The one thing that I like as well is the fact that you can create content that you can use after for the book. So let's explain, right, okay, you've written your book. What happens after you've written your book? And then how can you use the tool after that as well, Lucy?
Yes, so we really actually wanted, I mean, what you said just now about it being that's what you should do for your entire business. We kind of want Bookmagic to be that for people as well, that it's not just about the book, it actually improves your business as well. So, but one of the things is that you think, well, I've written my book now and then I'll get it published and then job done. It's not job done. That's the beginning, because then you have to use your book as that marketing tool, and that is, that's hard work. It's time consuming. So what we've done is we've now got a promotion tool that comes into play when you have written your book, although you can start using it as you're writing. But what it will do is it will take the content of your book and you can choose your platform, you can choose your format. So it could, for instance, write 6 LinkedIn articles. You just it will suggest the titles for you. You don't have to, you don't have to choose those ones, but it's very good at suggesting, what you could have. So it might write six, 750 word LinkedIn articles for you. You might want it to write 10 1,000 word blog posts, or you might just want it to do a series of social media posts. It will do all of that, taking the content of your book. So it's also in your voice. It's not, just kind of making it up. It's your content, it's your voice, and it will create those content assets. And then the really clever thing is it will post them for you. So it acts as a scheduler. So you can say, I want one LinkedIn article a week for the next 6 weeks, and here are the dates and times I want them posted. You set it up, and it just posts to your platforms. Or,
That's
I
great.
want, Instagram posts to go out, 3 times a week. And it will also create it. We've now got cover design that it does, but it also
Great.
does graphics for your posts, for your social media posts as well. So that's quite fun. So, the whole thing is sort of in there. So, the promotion that you need to do of your book is also taken care of to a large extent by Bookmagic. And you could program it for a year to schedule your social media posts about your book, and there it is. You've got the graphics, you've got the wording. It just goes out and does it for you. So it is pretty clever.
Yeah, it's a pretty clever tool, and it's very, I mean, that feature is such a great asset to have. I mean, you don't want all the hard work that you've put into writing a book to go to waste because of your
No,
lack of marketing.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
you've thought about that as part of the journey for your users of the platform. You mentioned something earlier there as well, which I'd just like us to talk a little bit more about, which is I talk about this as in the world of AI, we have to be more human in the world of AI. And when we work with AI, we think about how we would work with a human. And you mentioned something around that as well, as about using AI for good and that kind of tech for good. And the product that you've created, the tool that you've created is really doing that, because you're putting the user at the heart of that and what that user experience will be, but not taking away from that individual's content, which is within their head, and not using AI as a replacement of that, but as a guide, as a
Yeah,
director
yes,
almost.
exactly, exactly. I mean, there is a sort of, well, and I don't even really think of it as a competitor, but a book writing app out there that just says, tell us what you want to write about, and we'll produce a 30,000 word book in 15 minutes for you. And I think, well, honestly, I mean, yeah, it's very quick and very clever, but what is the point? What has it got to do with you? How will that help you relate to your ideal prospects? It doesn't tell them what you do. It tells them what, something that ChatGPT or whatever has gathered from the web. And the other thing I find too, and I've experimented with this because I thought it might be an easy way of doing things, is to get AI to do your first draft of something,
Okay.
and then you kind of turn it back into your own voice. Actually, it is so hard to do that. It's really hard to unpick a kind of AI generated, say, chapter of a book, put the right, kind of content that you actually want in there, turn it back into your voice, work out which bits are kind of just the generic kind of fluff that it puts in. It's much easier to write it yourself, and then you can get it to correct the spelling and punctuation and grammar, as long as you tell it not to do, not to mess around with your content or whatever. But the other thing that we really wanted to do is to make I mean, I know some people, probably a lot of people, find the writing process difficult, the writing
Yeah.
itself difficult. I mean, some people are dyslexic, some people, for them, English is not their first language. And there's a different kind of brain. There's internal processors like me who I do not really know what I think until I see it written, until I've typed it out and
Okay.
kind of, but then there are external processors who think as they talk, and they create their thought processes come through talking to other people or expressing themselves verbally. So we have got a voice to text function where you can talk your book. I mean, when I say you don't have to be a good writer to write a book, you don't have to be a writer at all. You can just talk your book on Bookmagic, and it will just
Amazing.
comes up on the screen. You have to be a bit careful if you leave it on and you're chatting to someone, suddenly your book is filled up with some kind of random stuff.
The conversation with the dog in the background.
But we really wanted to make this so that it's expensive to, for example, go on the Key Person of Influence program and be mentored through writing your book, or to use I mean, I'm not trying to put people off using human coaches, but obviously it is more expensive. It is less available to everybody. A monthly subscription to Bookmagic just makes this whole process a lot more accessible to a lot more people. And so we wanted to make it accessible financially. We wanted to make it accessible in terms of, sort of neurodiversity, all that kind of thing. And also different languages. It will, the AI will work in
That's right.
different languages. You can write in a different language. You don't have to use English if you're writing a book, for some other market. So, yeah, that's what we wanted
That's
to
the
do.
benefit of using a digital tool like that,
Yeah.
because it can have that flexibility to be able to do that. But I don't think the tool that you've created actually takes away from the coaching or mentoring that you can get as well, that you can do those things together
Yes,
and
yes,
you
you
can
can,
still go get
absolutely.
mentoring.
Yes.
And that's what you do as well.
Yeah, you can access real life coaches through the app. You can book an hour of a coach's time, and if, for instance, you're not sure whether you've got your positioning right, you could sort of say, "Look, can I have an hour with a real life coach who can look at this?" You can invite them into your account, and they can look at what you've done, or your book plan. Is my contents page looking right? Have you got any advice for me? Can we just talk it through? And I do think you're absolutely right that that combination of human and tech is ideal, because both have, their strong points.
Yeah. And you do that as well through your mission mastermind. Is that right? Is that how you help and mentor people outside of using the tool?
Yes, that's completely different. I work with, well, interestingly, it started as a book thing, because when I started the Business Book Awards the first awards were in 2018. I thought I had set up a really nice gender balanced judging panel, and we'd set up categories and criteria that were all very fair and equitable. What happened at the end of the judging process in the first year was that every single shortlisted, not shortlisted, every single winner of a category and the overall winner, every single one was a white man. And that was not what I expected or wanted. But, I couldn't go back to the judges and say, who were working on, sort of 3 judges on each category kind of thing. Look, I'm sorry, pick a woman here, or pick somebody of a different ethnicity, or, that's
Yeah.
not. So anyway, I had to work out what had gone wrong there. I went back and I realized that we had had half as many entries from women authors as we had from
Okay.
men, and that as they went through the judging process, it seemed that fewer and fewer women were being picked.
Mm.
So I wrote a book called A Book of One's Own, which was kind of my kind of mission statement about why women must write their books and how important it is to have women's voices heard in the business arena, but also how for women writing their books gives them authority that they don't have necessarily. Sometimes they feel they're lacking, sometimes they genuinely, are not appreciated as authoritative people in business. But when you're the author of a book, nothing says expert, authority, like being that, like having your name on the cover of a book. So I wanted to create an environment where women could feel confident in writing their books. So I started running women only book writing programs, and that was lovely, and I really loved doing that. And lots of women, I think, wrote their books that they might not have written had they not had that space and that sort of, kind of. And the groups became kind of support groups as well. That it was really,
Right.
really nice how people became friends in the groups. So I went on doing that for 3 or 4 years, and then we'd kind of reached parity with the Business Book Awards. We were getting equal entries from male and female authors. We were getting equally shortlisted and winners, women winners. And so I sort of thought, well, okay, I probably don't need to go on doing this, but I do love working with women. So I started running masterminds for groups of women, which were not book related, but ended up being, I mean, I call it the mission mastermind, because I realized that women who came into these groups, all were usually at a place of change where
Okay.
something was happening for them, either, I don't know, a life event, or simply they'd come to the end of a particular kind of phase in their life, or they needed clarity on where they were going next, or, their business needed to be revamped. So I sort of looked at it in terms of mission. So I call it the Mission Mastermind. And so I run a couple of masterminds of 12 or so women every year in a group, and it's lovely. I just love doing it. It's just such a good thing to do. And of course we do talk about books, and people do write their books, and I can't help them with that. That's not the kind of prime focus of these mastermind groups, but it is a great thing. I really, really enjoy doing it.
It sounds wonderful. And everything that I've got from everything that you've shared already, Lucy, is that whatever you're doing, there's always a benefit or a goodness that comes from it as well. You're there making an impact, whether you know it or not, but you're there making an impact. Do you go with that in mind, or is it just this going with the flow, or just seeing what happens next? Or do you think about it being as, I'm actually helping people on this, or is it just part of what makes up you, Lucy?
Well, I mean, I usually have something that's kind of some kind of purpose that I'm thinking I really want to help people do this. So from Rethink Press, where it was, getting entrepreneurs' books out there in the best way for them and making sure that they could use their book to build their businesses, and the mentoring too. I mean, there is a side of me that kind of enjoys teaching, just, so I like being able to take people through processes that I understand and I can see, I can help them with. So yes, and there's often a kind of like, particularly for the women thing, I was very, that was very much a kind of fire in me that I wanted to actually make change, to change the status quo somewhat. So yeah, there is, I suppose, but I mean, sometimes I'm aware of it, and sometimes it's just like, I'm doing this. It doesn't.
It's the impact that we can make in the world, whether we know it or not. And you're definitely making an impact through the Bookmagic tool that's out there. So I just want to share with the audience, while we're on it, where people can get access to your book that you've talked about.
Yes,
Bookmagic.
absolutely. Yeah, you can definitely download a free copy of it, and yeah, that would be great.
If you go to magicbook.scoreapp.com, we'll share that in the show notes and in the description underneath. Wherever you're listening or watching this video, please go and get access to Lucy's book and read it as well, because it will go through, and I expect, even more detail and clarity than you've shared on this episode so far.
Definitely more clarity.
Around it's the process of creating your book is so much easier and faster using this tool, and it does come from the process that you've created, and it is that ability to adapt your process depending on where you're at as well. So either, because I mean, I'm just talking from personal experience of me using it, but as I was putting the cards out on the card view of like, here are my topics, this is what I want to share, because I'm talking about my framework, so it's easy for me to translate that into the book. So I was mapping it out, and then I was going, okay, well, I do need examples and I do need data. So I was then going and searching for my data and putting that in there. And then again, the case studies, finding the case studies and putting that in there, as you were talking about too. But then when it was going into writing it, I could turn it into almost like a Word document, and how I'm used to doing it in a publishing format, and start writing in that way. So the flexibility and the fluidity of the tool is just something that I really, really love. Again, just going back to, you've put the user at the heart of it, and that's so important for anybody that's creating a product or has a service as well, but especially in the world of AI, the user is the most important person around it, that human that's interacting with the tool.
Yes,
okay,
yes, I hope you've done that.
Okay, so before we finish up today, Lucy, I'd like every speaker to give us 3 tips that they want to share with the audience before we finish up. So what 3 tips have you got for us to be able to write the perfect book faster and easier, Lucy?
Okay, so one of the tips that I haven't given you so far, so I think I've kind of given you the technical kind of tips, if you like, but one of the kind of hacks that I've found is that you can use your subconscious to save time writing your book. So I would say get into a writing habit. That's actually a main tip that I haven't mentioned before. So, and a writing habit is little and often. It's not like, I need to go away and to be on a retreat for 2 weeks or something to write my book. If you can take an hour a day, even half an hour a day, and just write, you will get your book finished much quicker than you think you're going to. But also use your subconscious to kind of work on things when you're doing other stuff. So when you finish one writing session, choose your topic for the next day. Say to your subconscious, think about this. I'm going to be writing about this tomorrow. I want information. It's amazing. It is like AI. It goes away and it finds stuff. And you'll find that when you sit down the next day and you open your next topic, a lot of work has been done that you haven't even had to think about. So I would think about that. And another tip I would say is when you're writing your book, be prepared to be on an emotional journey. There will be times when you are absolutely soaring and you think, wow, this is amazing. I am writing a work of genius here. Fantastic. It's all flowing. But there will be other times when you get overtaken by imposter syndrome and you think, oh God, this is so boring. Who's going to read this? I'm going to get criticized. I'll get terrible reviews. It's all rubbish. I shouldn't go on. Both of those are completely normal. They don't mean anything. This is what happens to everybody on a writing journey. You just have to step back from the emotions and keep going. And that's a really important thing. Do not get hijacked by those kind of negative emotions that will say to you, your book's no good. Who do you think you are to write a book? You are absolutely the right person to be writing your book. So just keep plowing on. And, that's a top tip.
Keep going. And it's almost like this advice that you're giving is just working in a business sense as well.
Yeah,
not only from
absolutely.
just how to create your book,
yeah,
but just like the three tips that you shared there are so relevant for just running your business. Anyway, put that conscious thought in your head and then let the subconscious do the work for you in the background. I love it. Absolutely great. Lucy, it's been such an honour to have you on the podcast today, and I could talk to you for hours around this topic. But what I implore everyone that's listening and watching to do is to go and explore the Bookmagic tool. Go and explore and get access to the free copy of Lucy's book. And what is the best way for people to start with the tool, the Bookmagic tool, Lucy?
So yes, you can set up an account on Bookmagic. It's just bookmagic.ai, and you can start for free. You don't have to pay anything. You can do the pole positioning bit and just check it out and see if you think it's going to be something you'll enjoy using. You can do that without having to sign up or pay anything. When you want to start planning and writing, then you need to take out a subscription, but do it at the time that's right for you. And when you feel, there's never a right time to write a book, is there? It's like, it's always going to be, there's always going to be other things in your life that you need to do. But the sooner you get your book out there, the sooner it'll start working for you, the sooner your business will grow because you've got that book there and you become more of an authority and all the good things that flow from that. So, try it out.
And you've got all these thousands of people that have done it through you previously. So you've heard it directly from Lucy. Go ahead, start using the tool and start thinking about your book and getting yourself your expert out there. Okay, thanks so much, Lucy. Thanks for everyone that was listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Digital Dominators. I hope today's episode gave you something practical or at least a bit of a boost to keep things going in this mad digital world. If you're enjoying the podcast, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming up. There's loads more good stuff on the way and some brilliant guests lined up too. And if you fancy going a bit deeper, come and join the Digital Dominators community. It's totally free and it's where I share bonus trainings, podcast extras and tools to help you build confidence with your digital skills. You'll also get access to my social media prompt calendar so you can finally stop staring at that blank screen wondering what to post. Just head to technologycoachingonline.com/digital dominators to get started. Alright, that's it from me just now. Stay curious, keep showing up, and I'll catch you in the next